Pink. This is I'm Henny from Pink Elephant Media, and we are design and marketing consultants based in Gloucester. Our Think Pink series is going to be covering all aspects of web, business strategy, and we've got some amazing guest speakers. And today we're joined by Gill Smith from the Business Kitchen. And we're going to be talking about a really essential part of marketing, which is who is your customer. And I know that Gill, the reason why I asked Gill to come on is it's one of the questions that we get asked. All of the people think they know who their customer actually is, or they've never really thought about who their customer is or how they target it. And we need to be absolutely crystal clear on that. Gill is an expert in business strategy. She has a wealth of experience in helping businesses refine their strategy, focus on their identity and their target market. So I'm really pleased to have Gill today. Thanks so much for coming along to have a chat.
I'm looking forward to discussing this topic because it's close to both our hearts, I think.
It's amazing. It so overlaps with what both of us do, isn't it? That it's one of those topics that again and again we get asked about, or we end up having to talk about it, or it's like our starting point. So I want to sort of start off and think about how can businesses begin to actively identify who their target client is, because I think we find that when we're talking to people, they talk quite generically, and it's almost everyone that wants their product or service, rather than really refining these markets further. So what have you found, and how do you think we can help clients get there?
I think the challenge people have is they say everyone because they don't want to exclude anyone, and there's this fear that if you that horrible word niche, then you're excluding everybody. But as you and I both know, that no, you can have several segments, you can have several different types of clients. But the crucial thing is, you've got to ask the questions about what is it they're trying to do, what are their outcomes, what are their problems, and what type of people are they? Because people are different. If you market too widely, it just won't resonate with anybody. So you've got to put that work in of asking all the questions and getting to that. What is they want most, not what is it you're going to give them? Because we've got to be in the customer's shoes, really, really in the customer's shoes the whole time. And I think people really struggle with that.
I think often we always say that people are too close to their own business to see it objectively, and then trying to get them to stand outside of their business and be their customer and walk through that customer journey with how they sort of interact. And we want to build trust immediately with people who are cold prospects, essentially. And one of the ways that we do that is really intimately understanding your audience. People like the top guys out there who bring out products all the time, the Neil Patels, the I can't think of his name now, Tony Robbins. They don't just launch products without really obsessively looking at their marketplace and really understanding them. And what we're aiming for when they hit a web page is for them to be nodding along, going, yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's exactly how I feel. And yes, I have tried that before and it didn't work. And so that they know that you understand who they are, what they want, and you're delivering it in the way in which they want it really helps. But I think their starting point, I don't know if you think this too, Gill, but is about really segmenting down those audiences into different niches.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing you've got to really, really think about, and there's some really cool frameworks around like the business model canvas, which uses the whole value proposition, does the customer profile. There's probably 30 or 40 questions that you want to think about to really drill down to what it is they're looking for, depending whether it's business to business or business to consumer. But think about, if you had to label them, as you exactly say, would the label help them recognize themselves? And the classic example that I borrowed from my mentor is, if you were an osteopath and you were looking to help people with backache and your top of your website just said backache ? Then people that have got backache are going to read on, and people that haven't got backache are going to pass by. And it really does come down to that whole, what's that thing at the top of your website, which you guys do such a great job on, of that's me, you're talking to me. And that's where we've got to get to. And if it's general, It's not going to.
I think there's a place for general. So when your website has its generalized pages, I think that that's okay because you do kind of have to speak to everyone. But when you're doing cold outreach or you're trying to scale your marketing efforts and you're no longer just relying on word of mouth or networking where you're really having to generate that yourself, it becomes more and more important to make sure that they realize that they're in the right place. So if you are working with a client and really honing down that target audience, how would you sort of start by going about doing that with them?
I would. I mean, I would start. I wouldn't necessarily start with the outcomes because the outcomes can be similar for different segments. I'd be thinking about, depending sort of where they are on their journey a little bit, I'd be thinking about what's their greatest pain point. You know, so is it stress and overwhelm? Is it they don't know how to? Is it they're not getting any conversions? They're not getting any leads? You know, well, what is their real problem that they talk about, and using the language they use to talk about it? And then you can drill down when you get into the questions onto, so, you know, if it's about stress and relief, so what is it they want to get from that? And then you start moving into the outcomes. But if you think about what they want most, that will be part of your segmentation because the different segments there most will probably be different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we always use the analogy of a gym. If you were
Yeah.
going to a gym and it's the same gym equipment, but at different times of the day, different people are coming in with different wants. 5 o'clock in the morning, you've got the people who want to get bath. At 9 o'clock, you've got the mums coming in, probably wanting to lose baby weight or to get fit and healthy again. Then you've got the 12 o'clocks slot. All of those same gym equipment, same everything else, but the language is totally different.
Yeah.
And then hitting that language, maybe wrapping some guarantees around maybe their biggest fear point or about the dream outcome that they want is really crucial. So really understanding and drilling in to who they are. We always say sit down with your target audience and actually just have a chat with them because you're not
Absolutely.
trying to sell to them at that
No.
point. You're literally just going to say, what is it that you'd want? What would make you come over? What are your fear points from buying from us?
Yeah.
And listen to them. They'll be the same ones once you've begun to hone those target clients really down. They'll say the same things to you, and you can use the, like you said, use the language that
Yeah.
they're using so that that really resonates with them.
I mean, one of the really good questions to ask people is, you know, if I had a magic wand to solve your biggest problem, what would it solve?
Yeah.
So that they really get focused on, well, actually what I really need is X, Y, Z. Well, actually what they really want, you know, so it's questioning. It's absolutely what you say. It's asking really, really well-crafted questions and really listening to the answers.
Well, and that's part of the key. And often I say to clients, they're not actually the best person to do that because actually someone else listening to the answers for them and then collating them at the end is actually a really good way
That's a really good
doing
idea.
it.
Yeah.
Rather than them actually doing it, because we've all seen, I won't say Dragon's Den, but it isn't the business, the other BBC, The Apprentice,
Yeah.
where they go in and do the focus rooms. They go in and do the focus rooms and they only hear what they want to hear. And I think that businesses, because they're too close to themselves, will often hear what they want to hear and put the same mistake. But when it's right, you know that it's really working. The business starts to do better immediately.
Yeah.
So you know you've got it right. Um, One of the questions we had was, how do you know your target audience is wrong? And
Well, they
it
don't
was,
turn up will be the first thing.
and that's it. It is actually absolutely dead right.
And I think the other thing with the audience as well, though, and I covered this when I ran this workshop on Tuesday, was think about who you want to work with and who you definitely don't want to work with, because you're probably not going to want to work with people who don't share your values or ethics, for example. Regardless of how lucrative that particular segment might be, it just may not sit well with you, and then you're never going to enjoy working in it, and then it will become a job, you know. So I think there's that other element of it as well, to think about who do you want to qualify to work with you, as well as how do you actually target them and identify them.
Yeah, it can be simple as looking back at your client list and like who the best people are to work with. Do they need a certain amount of education before they get there? What sort of education do they need? You know, you don't want to be dragging someone along to the party with you. You want them maybe sometimes at a certain level so
Yeah,
that they can
absolutely.
help
Yeah.
come and meet you halfway, and you can take them the rest of the way along that journey with them. So once they've done the work in terms of, thinking about who their target audience is, what should they actually do with that information? Because I think so often what we see is people will create these amazing avatars, and they'll bring them in and they'll send them in to you, and then you go, what have you done? And absolutely nothing has happened.
I think one of the really key things to think about, and I learned this a few months ago, is you've got to, in terms of what you're going to do with them, you need to understand where they are on their problem journey. So if they're they don't even know they've got a problem, that's your education pace. That's your putting content out that's valuable, but not really asking for calls to action. Then you've got the people that know they've got a problem, haven't got the faintest clue to do it. And then you go through several levels, and you've got the people that are actually looking for a solution now. They know there's one there, and they might well have heard of you. The messaging and how you reach them and how you interact with them is going to be slightly different for each one. So that whole strategy, and thinking about how that works with the websites that you guys look after, how does that whole piece move from taking somebody from their problem aware and they're desperate for a solution to getting your solution in front of them, and then taking them through to a conversation or an appointment or a free trial, whatever it is your journey looks like. And so that data can help drive that piece, but the pain points clearly will drive your messaging.
100%. Yeah. Because we always say there's no point. We use lots of tools and things, and part of this series we're going to be covering some of the tools that people can target their target audience correctly. But you're absolutely right. If that messaging is wrong, you're just wasting your time, you're wasting your effort, you're wasting your money, everything else falls flat. We also find that when they're sitting in front of their target audience, if they come back and say, we listened to you and now we've solved all of this, then they're like, so do you want to do business? Most of the time they'll take you up on that offer.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say 80% of the time, anyone that we know has done it, they've gone back and they've done business, and they've become really good clients of theirs because they feel listened to. You've gone away, you've really thought about how you can help them, you've honed your business around doing that, and now you're delivering it to them. You also need to make sure you can deliver what they're asking for, otherwise it will fall flat.
Well, that's the other part of using the data, of course, is to making, the business model canvas talks about creating fit. And fit is when your offering matches their most important pains and gains and outcomes. So, if you've got lots of bells and whistles in your offering, but actually your target audience doesn't care, they may be the best bells and whistles in the world, but they're not going to win you any business because there's not that fit. So, you might have to adapt your product or your service or your offering or how you deliver and all of those pieces based on what the customer wants.
So one of the ways that you can do it, we've done, is to just get people with stick-it notes to name all the problems that they've got.
That's great.
And you'll find that they're the same. You'll see the same problems again and again. So those become the top problems. And actually what you can do is not give it all away at once. We call it value stacking. So you take one, and when you meet an objection, which will be coming because you already know what all of their objections are, you've got an answer and you can value stack. Say, well, what happens if we add this to it? And what happens if we add this to it? Because sometimes people just give too much away, and actually then they have nothing to overcome the objections to buying with them. So really understanding how that journey in their mind goes when they're making that decision process is really helpful, because it allows you to then push those sales over the line at a later date, because you can value stack on top of that and say, what happens if we add this to it? That then perceives the value goes up, and they get what they want at that point.
Yeah, I think the other thing to think about is, as well, on the objections front, is if you were the buyer, what are the 10 questions that you would be asking? So if you think when anybody buys anything, there's 2 key questions they always ask themselves. Is this the right thing to do? And what happens if it goes wrong?
Yeah, love that.
And if you answer those 2 as part of your value stack and your presentation, that's going to take away a lot of, and you're talking about guarantees, how do you de-risk the decision a little bit, if you can? Some businesses you can't. To make that person think, oh, okay, that's all right then, because if it does go wrong, then that's fine, because this is going to happen. So that's just part of putting yourself in their shoes. What questions would you ask if you were buying your product or service?
100%. We call them friction points. So what and actually the bigger the friction to buying with you, the less guarantee you're prepared to give. Basically, you're telling them that they need to take that risk with you, and if we don't back ourselves, then simply we're asking them to back us. So we always go, the better the guarantee that you give around their fear point,
Mhm.
the more likely they are to do business with you. And for everyone you lose with, you'll gain 10 more customers. So you should actually alleviate that. But it all comes down to the research, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really understanding who they are. And you might probably find when you get them in a room or really start to research it that they're not who you think they are, because they very often aren't.
No, precisely. Yeah,
Yeah.
precisely. And so I think there's a book by, I think it's Alan Pease, that wrote a book called Questions of the Answers. And I think as business owners looking to work with people, we've got to ask tons of questions.
So in terms of tools, so some people don't know even where to start. So in terms of tools and a starting point, what would you sort of suggest in terms of how they make a start before they even get an audience into a room?
I mean, the one that we recommend as a very early starter is something called Answer the Public. I don't know if you've come across it.com.
Yeah.
They have unfortunately changed their pricing model now, so you don't get quite so much for free as you used to.
We used to get it. It used to be totally free, and then it was bought out by Neil Patel, who then monetizes everything, which is a bit annoying, isn't it?
So I think so. You used to be able to get like you used to be able to put in 3 topics, and it would give you 3 lots of questions, and it would give you the full set. I think you can now put in 1, and it gives you some of the answers, which is, and then you've got to pay for the next bit. But in terms of what it does, it gives you those hooks of the questions that people are asking out on the web, and not only is it good for identifying target market, but it's also quite good for writing content, because you can take one of the questions and answer it. So that would be my starting point. And I think, depending on the business, talk to people that are already doing what you do. I mean, people say, oh, I don't want to talk to my competitors, but hopefully what you do is different. You're not targeting the same people. So learn from others, have a look and see what your competitors are doing. How are they positioning their marketing and their channels? Are they on Facebook? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they networking? Are they advertising? Because that will tell you as well. But basically, you've got to put a stake in the ground, just get started, I think, really.
Yeah, we always say things like, if you've got a product or service, you can go and visit, Amazon, where people are discussing maybe the topic that you've got, and they're writing in the comment section of some of the problems that they've got. Or social media is another great area, like BuzzSumo. You can see trending topics and what people are talking about, and you get a few free searches on that as well. And just sort of dig down. Google alerts even give you stuff on certain topics of what people are talking about in your area. Your competitor social media accounts are also key.
Well, precisely. Yeah, and you just need to put in that legwork almost, and a lot of it is online. But really think about and listening. I think really hearing the cues. If you do go networking, listening to the conversations that are going on, because sometimes somebody will make a passing comment and it's like, oh, okay, right, yes, that fits what I'm doing. So I think being curious and listening, I think, are 2 of the really key things to getting this piece done. But you've got to put in the work, and it's quite a big piece of work at the end of the day. It's not a 5-minute finish job, and you need to keep revisiting it because your market changes.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good point, actually, because I think if something's working for a while, people get complacent. And actually, you've only got to look at AI technology coming in now and how it helps. And again, ChatGPT is another good area to sort of start, like, what questions should I put forward? Or, this is what I'm selling, what do you think I should be asking? They can give actually some really good results. It's not the be all and end all of it, but it gives you a good framework in which to start with. It will also give you common resistance. So we always go, what's the reasons why people might not?
The obstacles, yeah.
And it's actually it's really quite accurate. It comes out with most of them. There's a few odd ones that it won't come out with when you're sitting in a focus group, but it's pretty accurate in terms of even saying what my target markets are.
Yeah.
This is what I sell, and it will give you a list of target markets.
The other one is founderpal.ai, which is quite nice. That actually gives you personas.
Ah, I haven't seen that one. I'll
Yeah,
have to go check that out.
I shared it on the other day. I would put the rabbit hole warning on it, because it's very easy to start sitting and playing with it and you realize 3/4 of an hour later that you haven't actually done anything else. Um, but it actually comes back. You put in your business and your target audience. So you have to have a broad idea of your target audience, and then it will come back and it will tell you their pains and their triggers, and it'll probably tell you things you already know, but quite often there's a really nice little nugget of language in there that you hadn't thought of. So it's one of those things that just is great idea, and it's great fun to use. It's actually a really nice interface and everything. But rabbit hole warning on that one.
I think the other thing as well. Yeah, there's so many of those, aren't there?
Precisely.
I think that the other thing as well is that I can't remember what I was thinking. Anyway, it's gone. It's gone. Sorry, Jill. Is how do we then take this? Because I think that's where I was going. Once you've got all this information, actually it's really useful because it feeds into all of your marketing, all of your messaging, all of your cold outreach. It's literally the most important thing. And you can do this research, but I always suggest you take it back again to that target market and test it. See if they're nodding their heads when they say it, because you'll notice there's a difference. They're like, yeah, that's right, that's right. And if they're not nodding their heads, ask them why.
Yeah.
Like, what am I not quite getting right here? Because I can guarantee the minute you do get it right, it's like turning on a tap.
Absolutely.
It's 100% right. And once it starts to wane off, or its effectiveness begins to wane off, then it's probably a good time to do that research all over again.
I think the other important bit in there, though, as well, is looking at the channels that you're using, and social media is great, but it's not the panacea to cure all ills. So, a couple of examples. There was a lady we had who was soft furnishings. Her best route to market was parish magazines in the right villages. £10 a year, done.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, she wasn't getting anything on social media because that's not where those people were looking. And this is why you've really got to understand the customer. Where can you get in front of them? It could be it's a WI meeting. It could be a golf club. It could be it's a roundabout. I mean, it could be, but if you're doing something your competitors aren't, you might be getting in front of the audience that they're not getting in. Or so, get a bit creative and don't be stuck on just social media.
Yeah, because I think often if we're having a talk about social media, it's packed, whereas actually this is the boring legwork, but it's the most important bit of the legwork that needs to be done. Yeah. and most people go, I need to be on social, and you're like, I'm not really sure that you're there yet.
But doing what exactly?
And that's it, and it does feed back into absolutely everything as the backbone. Jill, thank you so much for having a chat with us today. Can you tell everyone how they can possibly work with you and tell them a little bit about the Business Kitchen as a whole?
So there is a great opportunity to work with me at the moment, because on the 6th of June, I am opening the doors to our monthly membership called The Solution, where we spend 2 hours working on your business. So we spend 45 minutes on a topic, which could be anything from ideal customer, but it could be things like possibility questioning, or it could be there's about 180 topics we cover over months and months and months. We have a digital delights where we share things like founder power.ai. We have an optional challenge, which is could be reflection, or it could be clearing a bit of your to-do list. And then we always, of course, do action planning using my Galahad process. So you come away with a 30-day plan. Not that many of those actually get delivered, but at least the intent is there to go away and actually do something after the meeting. So send me an email or use the QR code and get in touch with me via our website or whatever, and we'll have a chat with you to see if it's the right thing for you.
Look, Jill, you're insanely talented. You have the best reviews out of anyone I ever speak to around, and Business Kitchen has got a great reputation. I think even just turning up for that once a month meeting means that you're kind of being held to account, and it keeps the business moving forward. And we know that when we work with people who have that regular slot in place, those are the ones that keep growing, and then the ones that keep those appointments are the ones that get even further. So it sort of forces you to get there, because I've got to turn up, I've got to get this stuff done. So
it's all online, it's all recorded, it's all available. And thank you, Kate, for your thing. You'll be getting an invite. So
you've got some great followers going out there. Well done. Well, listen, Jill, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you.
coming on, and we'll do some more later because it's been absolutely brilliant having you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, great to see you, Henny. I'll see you next